What does the cost of living in Charlotte, North Carolina actually look like? I'm going to be honest, when I was researching this video, a lot of the averages I found online tended to be incorrect. So I'm going to break down what you can really expect to pay living in Charlotte when it comes to utilities, housing costs, taxes, childcare, and just general life. I'm also going to tell you some hidden costs that you might not be accounting for. No pun intended. Let's jump in. So housing, this is probably going to be your biggest expense, and this is an area where I do see buyers get tripped up. So the median home price in Charlotte is around $400,000. So if you put down 20% with today's interest rates, your monthly mortgage payment sits just under $2,000 a month. And a lot of buyers are thrown off when they look at the prices of our suburban towns. So our fastest growing suburbs like Huntersville, Matthews, Fort Mill are often going to show a higher price than in Charlotte, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're more expensive per se. A lot of times houses in these areas will often either be bigger, more upgraded, or they're going to have a higher rated school zone. So there are a lot of nuances that come into this. And I know it can get a bit overwhelming. So if you are looking to buy a house and you need some guidance, please don't hesitate to reach out. Here's all my information. It's also down below in the description. I'm more than happy to help. Now for some good news, we're luckily finally seeing a market where buyers are gaining some leverage. So depending on the area, it is not uncommon for you to be able to either negotiate the price down or get a seller credit. And I am seeing this a lot when it comes to new construction as well. I'm seeing some great deals here. Now, when it comes to home insurance, what I found online seems to be pretty accurate. So expect to pay anywhere from around $1,800 to $2,400 a year. And bigger and older homes will obviously be on the higher side of that spectrum. Now, the good news is that we really don't have volatile weather here in Charlotte. So a standard home insurance policy is what most people carry. You're not going to have to add on additional coverage for things like hurricane or hail damage, which can usually double your policy. And we really don't have that many flood zones. So for example, here in Mecklenburg County, only about 6% of our land is in a regulated flood zone. Now, HOA fees are another cost that can really swing depending on what you buy. And a large majority of the houses in this area will be in an HOA. So it's important to factor this in. Now, you can kind of break down the different HOAs into tiers. So you have your more just basic neighborhood where the HOA doesn't cover much. Usually an entry sign, street lights, and minimal upkeep. And those are only going to run you about $10 to $50 per month. And then you have your more standard kind of amenity neighborhood. A lot of new construction neighborhoods are going to be in this category. They'll have a moderate amount of amenities, pools, playground, walking trails, and they'll maintain the common areas. Those are going to range anywhere from $50 a month to $200 a month. But where things can really start to add up is if you purchase in any of these resort style communities or a 55 and older neighborhood. These neighborhoods will usually be packed with amenities, and the HOA will often cover things like lawn care and even utilities. Those can range anywhere from $300 to over $500 a month. That same kind of tiered system can also apply to condos and townhomes. However, your basic townhome or condo complex, the lowest you're going to pay is probably around anywhere from $150 to about $300. And if you're purchasing in any of those high rises with a lot of amenities, they can range anywhere from $600 a month to over $1,000. When it comes to taxes, the Carolinas love to advertise how low they are. And while that is true in a lot of ways, there are areas where I see people get blindsided, especially when it comes to property taxes. And before we get into that, let me just give you a general idea of what to expect. So you will always pay a county property tax. And if your home is in the city limits, which most houses are, you'll pay an additional city tax as well. So for example, here in Mecklenburg County, if a home has a $600,000 tax value, you're going to pay 0.49% to the county. If it's in the city limits, you're going to pay an additional 0.27 for a yearly total of $4,600. Here's where I see people get caught off guard. So your tax bill can sometimes double depending on when the county assesses your home's value and what's changed within your specific property. So when it comes to home assessments, most counties reassess every 4 years. And the last two assessments hit really hard in this area. So the last one was in 2023. And to give you an example, one of my property's tax bills went from around $1,500 a year to $2,500 a year. Obviously, that is a huge jump. And I will say before you freak out, a large reason for that big increase was the pandemic housing surge. So it is unlikely we're going to see that big of an increase again, but it is important to remember that Charlotte is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. So every 4 years, it is likely that your property value will increase. Sometimes it'll be a little bit, but sometimes it could be significant. Now, the other way your tax bill can increase is if the county reassesses your home individually. So this typically happens if you bought a flip, if you have done a major renovation, or if you bought new construction. And there's one more twist where people get caught off guard. So the Charlotte Metro actually extends to South Carolina. And I have a lot of buyers want to move to South Carolina because they have lower taxes. And while that's true, you don't automatically get that lower tax rate when moving to South Carolina. You actually have to apply for it, and it only applies to your primary residence. So I have actually seen where people were paying thousands of dollars more per year because they didn't know to apply for this rate. Now, income tax is going to be a bit more straightforward, and it's also a big reason why people want to move here. So in North Carolina, it's pretty simple. We have a flat income tax rate of 4.25%, and it's getting lowered to 3.99% in 2026. So no matter if you make $100,000 or $500,000 a year, you're going to be taxed the same rate. South Carolina, on the other hand, has a graduated tax system, so the rate's going to increase as your income does. The top is going to be 6%. However, most people will pay less than that once they factor in their deductions and exemptions. Also, neither state taxes Social Security, there's no inheritance or estate tax, and both have exemptions for seniors, people with disabilities, and military. But what about the cost of food? So our groceries are about 1% higher than the national average. So expect to pay about $300 to $400 per person. You will see a drastic difference in price depending on where you shop. And Axios recently ranked the least and most expensive grocery stores in Charlotte, with Lidl being the most affordable, Harris Teeter coming in mid-range, and Fresh Market being the most expensive. Now, as far as what to pay if you're going out to eat, expect to pay anywhere from $15 to $20 per person at like a mid-tier level restaurant. If you want to add a cocktail, it's going to be about $12 to $18. And we do have a lot of options for dining out and bars, so that number can be slightly lower or it can be significantly higher depending on where you go. Now, as far as childcare goes, if you're looking for full-time toddler or infant care, expect to pay anywhere from around $1,300 to $2,400 monthly per child. And I know this is a really big range, but it just really depends on the facility. If you're looking for nanny care, you can expect to pay about $25 to $35 an hour. And for families that have school-age kids, after-school care costs around $300 to $400 per child. Now, one thing that is very important to know if you're moving to Charlotte and you're looking for childcare, you want to start researching this right now. So most of our childcare facilities are going to be on wait lists. A lot of them are even 2 years long. So definitely look into this now. If you look down the description, I do have a link that can help you research. And then you have private schools. So most are going to be K through 12, and the tuition is going to increase as the students move to the higher grade. For the mid-range schools, tuition typically starts around $10,000 per year. And by high school, you're paying around $15,000. Higher end schools will start around $20,000, and you'll finish off at about $33,000. Transportation is another area where hidden costs can creep up on you. Now, obviously, you're going to have gas prices, which here in Charlotte, they usually sit a little bit below the national average. Right now, we're at $2.80 per gallon for regular gas. South Carolina is a bit lower at $2.69 a gallon. But depending on where you commute from, you may want to use the express lanes. So we do have optional toll roads here in Charlotte, and they can save you a lot of time during rush hours. The cost varies on how much traffic is on the road, and you're charged per exit. For peak hours, the cost is roughly $5 to $15 per exit. Off-peak hours are typically about 50 cents to $5 per exit. And parking is another area where I see people get a bit blindsided. So if you work uptown, which a lot of people do, you will have to pay for a monthly parking pass. So these range anywhere from $125 to $200 per month. And then of course you have car insurance. So rates here sit pretty middle of the road. We are slightly below the national average. Most people pay anywhere from $1,800 to $2,500 per year. Now, a lot of my clients end up getting blindsided by at least one of these costs. However, if you plan ahead, it will make your move a lot easier. And if you're still in research mode, check out this video here because YouTube says you'll like it.